Well, here we go on a raid. We'll be at 1600 block of 1600 block of Golden Way. Apparently, VPD is looking for a weapon of some sort that was involved in a drive-by shooting in their city. So here we go.
And I received a phone call in 1997, I believe it was, from Rudy Gallardo, one of Mr. Gallardo's sons. And he was crying. And he said, I'm looking for the lawyer that represented the 4 women from Danuba. And that was me. I had represented 4 women in a prior lawsuit. And he said, I think they shot my father. And I said, who? He says, police. And I said, what do you mean you think they shot your father? And he says, well, my neighbor called and said, you better get to your parents' house, something's going on, there's police everywhere. And I got there and there's police taped, they won't let me in, they won't tell me what's happening, but neighbor said they heard gunshots and they can't find my dad. My name is Arturo Gonzalez. I'm a trial lawyer with Morrison and Forster in San Francisco, and I was the lead trial counsel for the Gallardo family.
Somebody came, this lady came and knocked on my door because I was getting ready to go to work, and this lady came, I think it was my neighbor next door, and she came and knocked on my door and she goes, well, there is a lot of cops.
So one of the most tragic things about this case is that after the shooting, the family was taken to the police station against their will, the family members in the house. The police made a plan to enter the home right at 7 a.m. They were supposed to knock, they were supposed to announce, they didn't do that. Instead, they barged into the house and they ran into Armando Gallardo. Mr. Gallardo's youngest son was sleeping on the floor in the living room. They pointed a gun to his head and they said, don't move, you fucking sureño. They then went down the hallway and entered the master bedroom. Mr. and Mrs. Gallardo were sleeping in separate beds in that room. When they entered the room, Mr. Gallardo stood up and said, ¿Qué pasa aquí? What's happening here? At that point, Officer Valderas shot Mr. Gallardo 1 time with his handgun. Mr. Gallardo fell back. Then Officer Reinicius came into the room with an MP5 submachine gun that was set on 3-round burst. He pulled the trigger 5 times and shot Mr. Gallardo 15 times with that machine gun. While all of that was happening, Mrs. Gallardo had been taken out of the bedroom, down the hallway, and outside to the front yard. After shooting Mr. Gallardo, they encountered 2 other women in the house and an infant child, and all of them were taken outside and held against their will in the front yard before being taken to the police station.
I asked her, who died? Is it female or male, and how old is the person? She goes, it's a male, and he's about 63 years old. And that's when I find out, oh, that's gotta be my dad.
You know, one of the first questions I had is, why'd you use a SWAT team? Why was this necessary? They had to have justification for so much force, and so what they did is they made up a fantasy. They argued that Mr. Gallardo's sons were all gang members and they were violent, and that's why they had to use a SWAT team for their own protection. Throughout the trial in federal court, police argued that Mr. Gallardo's kids were gangbangers, and that's why we had to go in with a SWAT team with a submachine gun, because we feared for our safety. These are Mr. Gallardo's kids.
I talked to my sisters, my brothers, and our lives were never the same. And you know, one thing that I know we want the case, and they give us some money, but you know what? Money cannot buy a life. Money is not gonna buy justice.
lights were, their windows open.
Parte de alma. Para cortar el pelo. Sí. A ver.